Hello and welcome to Content and Capable, a podcast where I try to figure out what it really means to be an adult. My name's Sam, and today's guest is Taylor from Of the Eldest Gods, all about big families and teaching others. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
How are you?
As well as one can be on a Sunday.
So, what has been the latest, adult thing you've had to do?
Oh shit, I'm just about to move, so that's the big thing right now is switching apartments and switching, right now we're fighting with the insurance company because we moved to the new place on the 1st, but we still have to cover the apartment we're still living in until the 25th, so we've been on the phone with the insurance company too much.
Oh, and then you have to, wait for the hold music, and, people our age hate being on the phone anyway. She's sitting there going, I'm a nervous wreck, and then...
Yeah, I let my boyfriend handle it. I do the electric and the, just talking to the landlord, because I can do that by email.
No, I think the adulting thing I did this week was I discovered that my shower head is adjustable. It can go from, a really concentrated hard spray to, a really nice, almost like a waterfall.
Yo. I
discovered it, and I had a shower this morning, and I was like, oh, yes, I can change it. And so I was playing with it in the shower.
Just, back and forth.
Yeah. Because I was always wondering, because I thought that there was a water pressure issue, because I live quite high up in my building. It always seemed really weak. It turns out it was halfway between the two settings, and it just, just standing there, yeah. Very...
God bless. God actual bless. I wish our shower head did that, but that is such a wonderful... I have very thick hair, so I need really good water pressure, and ours just doesn't have it, so fingers crossed for the new place.
Yes. No, especially when you, live on a hill, and you're in, a high building, you go, oh, the water pressure's terrible again. I know my parents' place, they live on top of the hill. They don't live in a high building, but on the top of the hill. And there's no, water towers near. So the water pressure is terrible, just in general.
Yeah, I live on the 6th floor of a building. I understand your tall building struggles.
Yes. No, it's... I like living on the 3rd floor. Do I like climbing stairs? Not really.
I'm not looking forward to that because we have an elevator here. Well, we're moving into an old house that's been made into apartments, and we're going to be on the 3rd floor, and I'm not looking forward to carrying a couch up the stairs.
Yeah, no, that was terrible. Actually, I haven't had to carry a couch up yet, but I had to carry up my king single-size mattress up with my brother, and we had to have, every stop. Stop, take a breath. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. Moving is terrible.
How did you become an adult? Obviously, where do you feel like you became an adult?
Yeah, so I moved out of my house at 18. When I went to college, I took everything with me. There was nothing for me back home, and I would just take home whatever I would need and then stick my stuff in storage while I was gone. I only went to college an hour and a half, give or take, from my family. But I was out. I paid my bills starting at 18. I think it was probably while I was still in high school. My last year of high school, and I got a job and I got a credit card and was paying that off to build credit. That sort of stuff was when I was okay, I guess theoretically I am an adult now. I am paying my bills. Even I'm 23 now, and my health insurance is still through my dad and stepmom. But besides that, I'm fully on my own, and it's been like that since I was 18, 19. So I am also, I know this is something we share, have a million siblings. So I just had to grow up really quickly. And I'm not the oldest like you are, but I still have 7 younger than me. This is why I'm bad at talking about my family. I don't remember how many siblings I have anymore. Yeah, so it's I have so many younger siblings, like, I had to grow up early.
Oh yeah, I definitely felt that pressure as well. I have to like get out of the house, and I'm watching some of my younger siblings have that pressure as well. Like, oh yeah, I've got to start earning money so I can leave home as fast as possible. Um, but like, and you mentioned that like through your final year of school, you kind of like was basically had become an adult at that stage. I find that very funny because like still theoretically we were children at that stage, you know, going, yeah, I'm a child, you know, I'm still have to be looked after by teachers and teachers are still telling me off. But then at the same time, I'm paying my own bills, you know, I'm going out with friends and I have a life outside of home.
You think I had a life outside of home? You're funny, Sam.
I made an assumption I didn't have one either, although I did spend all of last year driving my siblings around to parties, so...
That was your life. It's fine.
Oh, and it was like, Mum and Dad weren't going to drive them, so I was like, well, I may as well drive you, because I was still living at home at that stage. And then halfway through the pandemic, because I'm a smart person, I moved out. It's very weird, like, that whole moving out of home and then moving like again, and it's like, have I got everything? You know, and it's like there's no one else who's like behind me who's gonna pick up after my mess.
Yeah, and it's as soon as you add another person to your mess. So I'm in a relationship. He's not always the best at making sure he has his shit together. So like then it's, do I have all my stuff? Does he have all of his stuff? Do we have the things that both of us need? Like there's this extra level of keeping track of a person. Like, he's an adult and all, but you know, some people have more, and I think a lot of that comes back to being an older sibling. He only has one sister. He doesn't know what it's like to pack up a baby and pack up two toddlers, and oh, you have two other kids to get in the car. Everybody needs to go, sort of deal.
Someone's throwing a tantrum because then someone else is sitting in the wrong seat. Oh, far out. The dramas before like a road trip. I just keep out of that stuff now. It's awesome. I don't live at home anymore.
Yeah, I go home and my sisters and parents will be yelling at each other, and I'm just sitting there with my coffee. Just, I can leave in like 10 minutes if I want to.
It's awesome. And like, it's like coming home, and you come home and you go, this is why I moved out of home. You know, the chaos. Like, I can handle everything else, but the chaos sometimes, you know, I'm at home now.
I feel that very deeply.
So when you left school, did you know that you wanted to go into teaching?
Yes. I wanted to be a teacher since I was 4. And then in high school, I decided what kind of teacher I wanted to be. Like, it was just my entire life, that was my goal.
Wow. And so you've done your teaching degree now, haven't you? Finished, and you're continuing on to I would call a master's, but I don't know what you guys call it.
Yeah, that's what we call it. Yeah. So I'm a pandemic grad with my undergrad. Great first year to start teaching, I must say. Right in the middle of pandemic. Great ideas, Taylor. And yes, so I just started my master's program, and I should be done next spring with that. Because, at least in my state, so I live in Pennsylvania in the United States, we have to have a master's within you have to have a certain amount of grad credits. Once you've gotten your certification, to keep your certification.
Wow, that's really weird. Because
Pennsylvania is one of the strictest in the states with teaching certs.
Wow. So, especially here in Australia, from what I've been told, you get your bachelor's and you go and form a relationship with a school through our teaching placement programs that the universities do, and then you go and get employed somewhere, and you can go get your master's if you want.
I teach history, which is normally the core subject that gets shafted the most.
Oh yeah, all the time.
So, when I used to sit in staff meetings, we call it student teaching when we were still in the university and going out. I would sit in these meetings and I would just go sit with the art teachers because we knew our programs were going to get shit on together. So I was like, well, might as well come sit over here. But as I was in theater in high school, and I was watching, the musical program would get the money, and then basically all the other groups were just left to hang out to dry. Like, we would have to put so much money into our plays and stuff, like, fundraising wise, because everything went to the musical department.
That's terrible. We got shafted as a whole music department, just all around. Like, our musicals, we used to have 2 musicals. One would run each year, and one would be for the middle school, and one would be for the high school. Because in Australia, there's only like 2 forms of school. You've got primary school for the first 6 years, and then high school for the last 6. And
a lot of schools do that here too. Like, my boyfriend went to one that does that way.
Oftentimes I hear like middle school, and I go, is that a separate school? Yeah. So we used to have a middle school musical and a senior school musical, and they shafted the middle school musical as I went through. And the middle school kids were so sad because it was like an extension to like the drama program at the school. You would do drama, and then if you were good enough, you'd go into the middle school musical. And it was terrible. I watched these kids learn that they would have to audition against us, like senior schoolers, and just be so devastated.
Yeah, I had a problem with our musical department. I did plays. So we did it in our fall. We would have a play, and then in the spring we had a musical, and then oh my god. In the spring, we'd have a musical. And then our middle school, so the district I went to is 6th through 8th grade. They would have their own separate stuff. For us, it was just, in the US, it's more based on size, how many people are in each school. So the district I went to had 4 schools. So we had an elementary school, an intermediate school, a middle school, and a high school. Whereas the school my boyfriend went to, it was just the primary school, the senior school. So, like, the U.S. is just there is no streamlining of education here.
That's crazy. Ours is state to state, so we'll have, like, different states will run, or, like, name things very differently, but it's a national curriculum. Like, everyone follows the same stuff. We all basically learn the same things. How did your teaching, like, change the way you saw or like reflected on your childhood?
So I teach for a cyber school. I don't teach in a traditional what we call brick and mortar school in person. And my school is it's the only cyber school that's a trauma informed school. So like we go through special training to specifically help kids who deal with trauma. And that's been the biggest thing for me, to be honest, because I didn't exactly have the happiest or safest childhood. So it's helped me both deal with the shit I went through and made me more relatable for these kids to talk to. Obviously, as a white woman who's now middle class, I do totally understand where my privilege lies. But I do know what it's like to have your home taken away, have a parent dealing with a drug addiction. My dad almost got murdered. So like, I have a tragic backstory. It's been well established. It's like looking back on the stuff I dealt with and the fact that I made it this far has helped me become a more compassionate teacher, I think, because I can see where their struggles are because I had the same struggles. And then it's also helped me to look back and be like, well, I was a shitty person at this point in my life, and I've reached out to people, like teachers from when I was in high school, and just said thank you or things like that. For in high school I was a mess. Like, I was a total mess. And so that's been the big thing, is seeing where my life fucked up and being able to translate that into, well, I can't fix what I did now, but I can at least try and support these kids while they're going through stuff that's similar. And a good chunk of my student population, so I teach in Pennsylvania, and my students are from all over the state. It's not just like a small school, it's all over. And I have 117 kids, and they're from everywhere. And a predominant amount of them are people of color, or I think the rate for our school below the poverty line is like 60%. So it's a lot of kids dealing with a lot of shit. And it's been the one blessing, in a way, that I did have to go through this stuff, because now as an adult, I can then be helpful to others.
Yeah. No, that's like that you know, that whole experiencing other children suffering and like watching them and trying to help them and going, I've been through this as well, and it kind of lets you process that like suffering that you've been through and go, I can handle this a little bit better. You know, it's never going to be perfect, but you know, going, I feel a little bit better for myself.
Yeah.
It sometimes, you know, makes me wonder, you know, you look at children complaining about their parents, like, oh, they're so mean, or they're not doing enough, or, you know, they're terrible, and you go, well, yes, but they're probably trying to do the best that they can sometimes as well with what the life that they've been dealt.
Yeah, there's a level, just working with kids, like that's my entire... There is a point where you can see the shift in how kids talk about their parents. Even from a young age, you can normally see when it's the parents just like told them no, to where neglect happens. And it's a very like slim border between the two, and most people aren't looking for it. And I think people our age, so you're what, 3 years younger than me? I think we established this. We're very much more in tune to this stuff right now, because we've lived in a world where that border keeps getting broken over and over again. Not necessarily by our parents, but society in general has just sort of taken a sledgehammer and taken that border away. So, I don't know, it's very interesting, because we're not real adults.
I'm still trying to figure out how to do this adulting thing that everyone keeps talking about.
We are pseudo-children. And so it's as cliched as it is, the older I get, the more I look back and I'm like, okay, where was this line in my own life? Where is this line when my sisters call me complaining about my parents?
And like, you and I are having younger siblings going through those stages and complaining to, you know, my siblings do the same. They call me up and go, Mum and Dad are doing this, Mum and Dad are doing that. And I sit there and I go, now that I've looked back, I don't think it's as bad as we all think it was. Or like, I can judge that line a little bit better and go, actually, no, I do have to call out my parents on this and go, wait a second, you know, this child's made quite a valid complaint and you've just brushed it off. Or, you know, you've refused to answer this question that they've had. My brother, who's 17, has left school, is trying to buy a car at the moment, and the mum and dad don't want to talk about it because you know, obviously it's his financial decision, but like they're not super keen on him buying a car for himself. Not that there's anything wrong with him buying a car, it's just not keen on it. And I turned around and I said to him, I said, they don't want to talk about it because it's your decision. You know, they've got enough decisions to make at this point. You know, they're not neglecting you. They're just trying to prioritize what they're doing.
Yeah, they've got other things happening. Yeah, I get that.
Because normally what happens is mum will give birth and for 4 or 5 days, it's absolute chaos. And then about 4 or 5 days, we kind of get back into the rhythm. Okay, this is what life is like with mum with a newborn, and but there might be like a whole week where I'll disappear, and just be babysitting kids while dad helps mum at the hospital or runs the school children around. It's but like they've got priorities, so I've got to help them fulfill their priorities while still, being that good older sibling to them.
Yeah, I get that. See, I've had the benefit of my siblings come prepackaged. Most of my siblings are adopted, so I don't have to go through the like mom popping one out. They just arrive. Literally, like one day my parents were like, we're going to Philadelphia, we'll be back, and came a child. That's sort of how it worked.
Yeah, and like, well, I didn't actually think about this, but is there like a period of adjustment where the child that's been like your sibling that's been adopted, they have to kind of adjust to a new family, and you guys are going to adjust to them as well?
So my family is a little different. So my mom has been doing foster care since way before I was born. Let's see, like 89, 90, somewhere around there. She's had over 50 kids come through, some of which were adopted, some of which weren't. So it's really just been part of my life, so I've never really had to adjust to it because it's always been a thing. Most of the kids we get are babies, and they're normally babies who nobody will take because of medical issues. My mom's a pediatric nurse, so most of my siblings have some sort of special need or a disability. I think there's really only 2 of my siblings that they got after they were babies, actually. My brother Jared, who was almost 4, and then my sister Alyssa, who was 10. And Alyssa's also the only one who's not from Philadelphia. So most of my siblings have been adopted out of Philadelphia. Most of my siblings are different races, different backgrounds. Like, my older sister, my mom's first 2 kids she got were from the same family, and they're Muslim. So my middle name is Aisha, which is a very traditional Muslim name. And it's because when my sister passed away, I was born 2 years later, so they just made it my middle name. But that's the thing, is like my mom's gone to Muslim funerals and stuff like that because of my siblings, because they stayed in touch. So it's for Jared, it was okay because he was still pretty young. He is back with his birth family now for a variety of reasons, but Alyssa, it was harder because she was actually from my area. So we always ran the risk, now she came before I was born, but she always ran the risk of running into her birth mom, which was the issue. And actually my dad and I would go out and do stuff, and we'd run into her mom all the time. And my mom has the policy of, if the situation's not dangerous, she still lets the kids see the birth family. And it was one of those cases where like they had to work hard to make sure that line was kept. So it was really Alyssa's the only one that really had to go through a transition period. Now my sister Mattia, was the youngest, had never had to deal with any of that because she was the youngest. And 2 years ago, I get a text message from my mom saying, "You're going to be a sister again." And my response was, "You better not fucking be pregnant." That is exactly what I texted my mom. My mom is like older, like she's in her 50s. So I'm like, "Mother," and she's like, "No, I'm in Philadelphia right now getting a child." And I'm like, I thought we were done 14 years ago. That was the deal. So Mattia did have to go through this. Mattia's I only have 2 like blood related siblings, and she's one of them. She's the only, she had to go through the transition. She's really the only one who had to. And she went from being the baby to having a baby to help take care of. It's been hilarious for me because I'm not home, so I only get to hear her complaining over the phone.
It's great. And like watching like, so when Mum has this baby in a month's time, the children who are the eldest in the household, aside from my brother who's still living at home, who comes to university, aside from him, all the rest of them haven't had to deal with the kind of stuff we've had to deal with in terms of, having a newborn in the household and going, we've got to change nappies, we've got to be like really sensitive to what Mum's feeling and, try to help out as much as we can. And, Dad, because we're a single income family, so Dad works. Dad probably works almost a 50-hour week. Oftentimes we're the only like older children at home, so you've got to be like, how can I help? Do I need to go right to the shops to pick up ingredients, or should I, make dinner tonight? Plus, schoolwork and having your own life aside from that, which, to be honest, I didn't do.
Yeah, there's an 8-year age gap between me and my next oldest sister. So, like, I'm the oldest of the younger bunch. So I basically fulfilled the role of the oldest sibling for most. So I fully understand what you're talking about. I did theater in the fall, and then the rest of the year I was home.
Yeah. It's like, and like, I play trombone, so I'm always at rehearsals and things. And so, it's funny, Bethany, who was born 2.5 years ago now, the night she was born, my brother and I were at a wearable art parade helping run the event with the teachers who ran with the art department, because the art and the film and television department were together. So we just helped out whenever we could, and we get picked up at 8:00 at night, and Dad goes, "We need to move. Like, Mum's about to give birth," and he races home. We're going double the speed limit on these country roads back from school to home.
And by the time you have your millionth child, they just sort of slide out, so they really had to go.
Well, it's very interesting. This one did slide out. Within 10 minutes of arriving at the hospital, this one was out. But for number 7, Mum was in labour for 10 hours and was just not having it by the end of it. And actually, probably by the time this is up, Mum's given birth. So it's going to be a hot mess for me. At this point, that's why I'm recording things so far in advance to hopefully get ahead of that. Have you ever had to teach your siblings something? Your parents go, I give up trying to help them. Can you teach them? You're a teacher, Taylor.
So last year with the pandemic, all the schools shut down. And I actually happened to I came home from school rather than staying at my apartment, just to sort of help out, because my mom's a nurse, so she was still working. And so I basically had, I guess at the time they were 13, 15, my 2 sisters, and then my nephew, who was 9 at the time, just sitting at the table, and I would just sort of go around to each child and help them with their homework, because my older sister's dyslexic, so she couldn't really help my nephew. So I was basically his in-home teacher, but more advanced Spanish and things like that. Mom knows some, but I did Spanish for 7 years. I can probably help just a little more. So it's very interesting. Gabby, she's going to be turning 16 at the end of May, and I'm like panicking because she's my next younger sister, and but she'll normally call me instead of asking my parents at this point. My mom gets so mad when she does it. I'm like, the thing is you would have to then go and call me to help her with this problem, so why wouldn't she just come to me first? Especially when it's something history related. She was taking world history this year. That is the course I teach. It just makes sense for her to ask me. I get you probably know it, but like, it makes more sense for her to ask me.
Yeah, no, 100%. So my paid job at the moment is to tutor kids. And so Mum will go, oh, can you help? I do everyone from preschool all the way through till just about graduating. And Mum goes, can you help, like, the preschooler with the alphabet? She keeps messing it up, and I just don't have the patience. And then so I'll try to help her, and I'll lose my patience, and I go, I give up. That child is unteachable. Then we just hand her off to the poor teacher, who we've known since I was in preschool. And this poor teacher is like the quietest teacher ever. And it's just like really, really quiet. You would almost call her timid, except she's, a very good teacher. And she, and this particular child is very loud. We nickname her the terrorist because you can't leave her alone for 5 minutes. And it's a terrible name to call a child, but at the same time, it's very accurate. So we've had many, many phone calls and emails between the teacher and Mum.
Yeah, my sisters aren't that bad, but my youngest sister, the baby who turns 2 this month, and I'm also freaking out about, she and I picked up reading really early. I was reading by the time I was 2, 3, and she's already sort of on that. So I never had to have that really hands-on thing. And with that age gap between me and my older sister and me and my younger sisters, it's almost weird for my parents to adjust for that. Because I have 3 brothers in between, but they all have, like, autism spectrum disorders and all sort of specialty stuff. Went to special schools for it. So it was a whole different ball game. So between me and my sister, who needs a little more TLC, it's a totally different world. And actually, when I'm designing lessons and stuff, I always ask, would Gabby be able to do this? She's just an average student. Like, she has the things she's good at, things she's bad at, right in the perfect spot. So it's really nice right now because she's took world history this year. I can fully, and then Mattia's only a couple years younger than her. I've got a few years of this thing happening, and then my nieces and nephews go through. So I'm in a sweet spot with it. But yeah, I genuinely will sit there and think, okay, if I were working with Gabby right now, would it work? And so that's actually how I approach teaching.
Yeah, and like that approach to teaching is very weird sometimes. I have one kid I tutor one-on-one on like a Thursday afternoon, and I finished my shift on Thursday afternoon, and I turned around to my co-workers and I said, I'm glad I don't have students after him because he drives me up the wall. He's in year 10, so he's 2.5 years away from graduating at this point, and he drives me up the wall sometimes. And I've got a brother who's the same age as him, and I'll come home, and my brother's sitting there. He's 5 weeks worth of work behind, sitting there. He's a smart kid. He's just lazy.
Yeah, I get it.
And then, like, I sit there, and he asks me, and he's like, how do you do this? I'm like, A, I didn't do this in school because I didn't do smart maths. B, this is how you do it because this is, like, dumb maths. And C, why are you asking me questions? You have an older brother here who did the same maths as you and, will understand it. He just keeps asking me questions. I think I spent most of my Friday night just answering questions for him. Or, like, trying to figure out how to do his maths. And I feel like that whole problem-solving thing that comes with having to, like, adjust curriculum or adjust the way you're teaching things kind of allows you to be smarter than you think you actually are sometimes.
You described, like, 2 very, like, specific teaching things. And obviously, we have a different setup here than you guys do there. Like, we don't... And once again, individual school districts, so these smaller things within the states, and the states have their guidelines, and the country has their guidelines, but you're normally focused on, like, the school's guidelines. We don't have what you described, which is tracking as much. So it's basically putting a student in this this section, that A, B, or C section, and having them follow through with it. We don't have that as much. At least in my high school, we didn't. So even though, I finished high school taking advanced calculus. My sister's never going to get there. She's going to finish with geometry or trigonometry, somewhere in there. But I can still help her through it, because even though I did the more advanced, and then even with Mattia, when she's starting out, she's going to have followed the same beginning path as Gabby. It's not, now if she goes on and take calculus, she's shit out of luck, because I don't remember anything from calculus that was 8 years ago. So the other thing you're mentioning is what we call differentiation. So it's adjusting your instruction and curriculum based on individual students. And so that's actually what I spend most of my job doing, is taking what our prescribed curriculum is, our standards, like what we have to teach, and molding it around the kids. I'm very much a teach what they need, not what you need sort of mindset with it. And so by the time this comes out, I'll be almost at the end of my school year. But right now it's the beginning of May, and I'm about to teach the Holocaust. So I have it structured because I know a lot of my kids have certain levels of trauma, that I have built-in breaks. I have built-in extra activities for kids who can't stay in the main room while we're talking about it. I have extra reading assignments for the kids who want to take it farther. And you can do this without physically tracking with like the ABC. Now, granted, I took all honors in AP courses, so like college level courses, while I was in high school. That was just me. That's what I needed to stay stimulated as a student. But for somebody like my sister Gabby, she can learn the same stuff I did, it just needs to be structured differently. And that's essentially what teaching is anymore, or should be, I should say, is structuring around these kids. You can teach them all the same thing, it just matters how you teach them those things.
Yeah, and like, I definitely did see that as well. So we have tracking, but also, you are set quite a strict curriculum, especially in those last 2 years. We can't really deviate from what we're told, what the teachers are told to teach. And the very interesting thing about that is, it's very interesting the different ways different teachers would teach it. So we all had maths at the same time. We'd all come out and go, oh, what did you learn today? And we exchange. There was one particularly crazy teacher who would go off on very long tangents. So we would exchange that first, because often that was the hot gossip of the week. What controversial thing he told the class, unfortunately.
My math teachers just popped into each other's rooms, threw markers at them, and then walked out.
Oh, far out. We used to have... we would have... Our teacher would have to walk back to the staff room to grab sheets, because she would always forget something. And so we would always, be sitting there. But, like, we were the quote-unquote smart kids. Because there's no such... Like, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a smart kid. It's a kid who can work within the bounds of our learning, or the kid who...
Every kid has their own smartness, I tell them.
But then at the same time, I'm turning around and we all turned around to each other, and we'd be almost a riot by the time the teacher came back. Because, like, we'd be exchanging hot gossip, and the teacher would come back.
Yeah, I don't really make my kids take notes. So I actually, for every lesson, I give my students a Word document with 4 main questions to look for while we're talking, so that they're not sitting there writing notes the whole time. They'll be part of discussion, and I will literally just star the important information to write down, because then they are learning, they're writing down what I need them to, but I have their focus. They're not just sitting there they're not getting pissed at me because they're writing notes all the time. I also don't make my kids memorize dates. There's like a couple. So maybe like the storming of the Bastille started the French Revolution because that changed history essentially. Things like that. Like if it's a very specific reason. But I don't make them memorize battles. I don't make them memorize any of that stuff because it's not helpful. And as an adult, I would rather them know how to look at the cause and effect of an issue, or be able to argue respectively but effectively. And respectfully, wow. And things like that, then yes, I want them to know the historical content. That is what I am hired to teach. I am also hired to teach them skills and social, emotional, behavioral skills. To bring it back around to me looking back on my childhood to now, the difference between how I teach versus some of my teachers taught in high school. And I had amazing teachers. There's a couple of them where, that were the sit down and take notes, or super long tangents that have nothing to do with anything and won't wrap it. Like, I go on tangents all the time. If you've listened to our show, you know I can get very tangential. But I normally will wrap it around in some way. I will find a way to wrap it around. But it's very interesting looking back to see where my holes were in my education. And I'm not a perfect teacher. I mean, it's also my first year teaching. There are things I'm very, very shitty at. But there are certain things I'm really good at. One of them being connecting with the kids, mostly because I'm only 23. My oldest student is 20. Like, there's a 3-year age gap between me and my oldest student. So I'm in a very unique position right now in that sense, but I'm also in the position of, I don't know a lot. This is my first year. I'm still building it. And I think as adults, like early adults, we go in thinking, okay, we're going to get our shit figured out right away. We're going to graduate, or finish whatever training, whatever schooling, whatever sort of thing. And then we're going to figure it out as soon as we're done. But it's very much the opposite. None of us... Heck, I talked to one of my teacher friends, and she's like, I'm in my 40s and I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So if I could impart your listeners with anything, is remember that everybody's still figuring it out. Even if they're like 100, everybody's still figuring out something.
Yeah, and I think we kind of forget that because everyone else seems to have their shit together. And I go, my co-workers, like some of my co-workers are my age or younger, and they seem to have their shit together more than I do. And I sit there and I go, I wish I could be an adult like that. And then I go and we'll have an incident at work or something will happen. And I'll turn around and I'll go, oh, no one has their shit together.
And that's, I think, if anybody were to take anything away from your show, I hope, is nobody has their shit together. Just some of us are better at other things than others.
And hiding it as well sometimes. I'll talk to a co-worker and then the next day they're having a mental breakdown. It's like, well, wait a second, you were hiding, XYZ because, I'm like, no, you don't need to hide that, I try to be as transparent as possible in my communication because my dad's side of the family very good at thinking things but not saying them, or not like verbalizing and communicating it to you. So I've tried to react and try to be very transparent. So I'm also very transparent about like what I'm feeling or how I'm going. And sometimes I turn around and go, you don't need to hide anything because I don't hide anything. Like this,
Part of it's just Western society in general. Like, we have that similarity. I mean, obviously Australia and America and like most of Europe have the same like overall themes and how but that's the thing, is like we're raised to think too much and to put a wall up, and it starts in school. Bringing it back to like my kids, a lot of them will say, I've never had a teacher allow me to give my opinion. And in social studies, it's important. Like, my big goal, I always tell them that if they want to share an opinion, they should have something to back up that opinion. That is my rule, and it's to help them become effective speakers and stuff when they get older, but it also gives them that ability to be transparent, like you were talking about. And I think in general, we're just not told that. We're just told to shut up and go with the flow.
I 100% think that. And it reminds me very much, I was told once about this psychological theory talking about masks. And so whenever you go into a situation, you kind of put like some sort of mask on. So I know, especially when I went to school, I went in and pretended that I had my shit together, because especially through my last year of school, I was a school leader. There was lots of stuff going on at home. Instead of taking 6 subjects, I was taking 7. So I was one of 2 students of the whole of the school. I was taking an extra subject on top of things. People normally drop subjects by the time they're in year 12, especially in Australia. And so, I had all this thing, and then a physics teacher got fired, and there was a couple of other bits and pieces, and I had a mental breakdown, a complete mental breakdown, actually. Got diagnosed with depression and went on medication for it. And I turned around and I realised that mask was basically was part of what caused that whole complete collapse of my world. And so not letting myself be transparent was the thing that was killing me. And I put on a mask other places as well. Obviously, in a professional setting, I've got to put on like this professional mask and be a little bit more refined than I normally would be, especially in Australia. I think this is one of the big things in Australia. We're really like not out of being rude, but we're really quite racist and quite rude sometimes to each other. Not in a bad.
Welcome to America.
But like, we have to, when we go into a professional workplace, we have to turn around and put on that mask of being professional. And that's what we do. And it's very unhealthy sometimes. But like, obviously, that's the cultural norm. And sometimes I turn around and go, that's unhealthy.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed a lot of places here starting to relax that. Like, as a teacher, like, having tattoos, like, I have one on my wrist and one on my shoulder. Well, the one on my shoulder is always covered. Even if my clothing's not covering it, I have long enough hair that it's covered. But my one on my wrist, I was really worried about when I did my student teaching, because I didn't want to have to wear long sleeves every day. I actually brought a sleeve to cover it. But when I got there, they were like, yeah, we're not as strict about that anymore. And I was really thankful, because I didn't want to wear the sleeve. But it wasn't, when I got this tattoo, it means a lot to me, and I wanted to get it, but I had to sit there and think when I got it, will this affect my job chances? And it's not an offensive tattoo. It's like, you can attest to the fact that it's a heart, it's got an awareness symbol. Like, it's not anything offensive, and honestly, it's more of a conversation piece to let my students know I'm thinking about mental health and stuff. So it's hard.
And it's hard sometimes because obviously there is a line between being professional and, being unprofessional. And oftentimes, if something happens, the first person I go to contact to air my dirty laundry is my mother. I'll go and air my dirty laundry to my poor mother, who has to listen to me rant and rave about how the university is trying to shut down the one club that I actually enjoy, and how, work is falling apart and I'm considering quitting, and, XYZ. But at the same time, I sit there and go, I can't talk about this to anyone else, because it's really quite unprofessional for the, the job or the profession I'm going into. Or as like I'm a journalist by that will be my profession in 12 months time, hopefully.
Knock on wood. I would, hold on.
I turned around and there's a huge amount of rules that you have to follow as a journalist. Right of reply, making sure you've got sources and quotes correct, and when you're interviewing someone, even like in a podcast setting, being very sensitive to the emotions and trying to direct the conversation in a healthy way, and it's very hard sometimes to get that balance between professionalism and being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were talking about being a professional adult and like being like what we thought an adult was. Who, do you have anyone that you turn around and go, this is how I base whether I'm successful or not as an adult off?
So this is funny. I was actually just reading a book about metrics you define yourself by, and how you should choose things that are internal and controllable rather than these external comparisons. But I will answer your question and but I don't know, it's something to consider, like, now that I'm at this point, is should I be putting my values into my own levels of respect and honesty and things of that sort, rather than comparing myself. I had a teacher in high school that I would, she was my role model. Like, I model my teaching style after her and everything. She's no longer a teacher because she's getting her doctorate and everything, but, she was my role model. Like, why I decided to go into social studies, for sure, why I went into high school. And so, but now that I'm an adult, I see the problems she has. And I think now that I am an adult, it's hard to make that metric another adult.
Yeah, it is very hard, because you look at yourself and look at other people and go, I can't compare myself to them. They're completely different. I was thinking about this question when I was thinking about questions to ask you, and I was like, who would I compare myself to? I was like, well, would I compare? And the first thing I thought was my mother. She's a stay-at-home mum. She basically runs the household. Not that Dad doesn't help.
No, every family decides it in a different way, and it's, as long as it's a mutual agreement between them, no shame in it.
But she basically runs the household, and I go, should I measure myself against my mother? And I go, no, because when I was my mother's age, the times were completely different. When Mum was my age, she was preparing to be not a timekeeper, some sort of assistant at the boxing in the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and but then I'm like, well, I can't compare myself to my mum. And I was like, well, what about some of my friends? My really close friend who doesn't live anywhere near me anymore, but it's like his life is completely different because he was an only child. He's like none of those external family pressures. He just has to focus on himself. And I was just like, I can't find. And I struggle. Some people in job interviews, one of the questions I hate trying to answer is, who is your role model? Okay, what's a role model?
Yeah, and I believe it's important for kids to have role models, but once you get to high school, and I tell my kids this all the time, that's when they are to be an individual. I believe as a teacher, I have a responsibility to model respect and honesty and things like that to my kids. And a big thing I'm working on is controlling my weight and eating healthier and exercise to be that role model. But I've been explaining to them that you are not here to copy someone. And I think those of us who are young adults like you and I go into this adulthood sphere early on and thinking we have to model ourselves off of someone, and we don't. And I don't know, I think it's something that we need to talk about more. Like, what can we measure ourselves up to rather than measuring ourselves to other people?
Yeah, and it sometimes I go, I want to, and my instinct is to measure myself against someone. I'm a highly competitive person. Like I will, go into full spirals about how I'm not good enough compared to other people. You know, I I spent last week thinking about how the two the two journalists that I was working with on Tuesday, who aren't even like considering going into a career in journalism, or into the same kind of journalism I am, how they're like so much better than I am. I'm like so much better journalists. They're so much more efficient. I'm sitting there going, yeah, but they're not doing the same thing I'm doing, and I can't really compare that to them. Or I've recently started uploading to TikTok, and you follow the big creators or whatever, and you go, they're getting thousands and thousands of viewers, and I'm only getting like 200, but like 200's amazing anyway. So yeah, I don't know, it's very weird. But yeah, it's been a very weird time to grow up as an adult. I started university last year as the pandemic started, and it was terrible. I had a couple of points where I turned around and I said I might have to stop university for a little while and get my mental health back in order. But it was, and like learning how to do things and making mistakes as well. I didn't, the first bar I went to, so I turned 18 before I went to university. So I turned 18 in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And I legally drinking age here in Australia is 18, but then I turned around and I didn't end up, I could drink alcohol, so I drank alcohol, but I didn't end up going to a bar until I was a couple of weeks away from turning 19. It was like really weird because the culture here in Australia is, turn 18, you go and you experiment. You go to the bars and you learn your tolerance and you learn what you like, and then by the time you're 20, 21, you know what you drink and where your limits are and how to deal with alcohol. It's very and like lots of other like lessons about growing up and finding your priorities or learning where your priorities are. It's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't get a college graduation. Like, I got a Siri voice reading my name out that I could click on our college's website, and it really pisses me off when kids complain about their graduations this year, where it's like a bigger group graduation rather than for each college within the university. I'm like, I got Siri saying my name, so literally just fuck off. And so I don't, the past year I went through a lot of life changes. I mean, I graduated college. I applied for my master's program. I started a job. I moved almost 4 hours away from my family. I bought my first car. A lot of things happened in the past year, but I wasn't able to celebrate or acknowledge them in the way that I would hope to. And I think it really reflects our generation in general. I mean, here in the US, 9/11 happened when I was 3. And it just has been the defining thing for my entire life. We are just now planning on getting out of Afghanistan in September. It's been 20 years.
My father's in the military, and in fact, my parents' wedding was ruined because of 9/11.
Oh shit!
So they were born. They had their wedding was the 30th of September. So after 9/11, the second major airline in Australia collapsed, and half of my parents' family couldn't turn up because flights were so expensive, and they couldn't get on a plane to get to Sydney in time. Thank you so much, Taylor, for being on the first episode of Content and Capable. Is there anything you want to plug?
Yes. First off, you can find me at Taylor from Cabin 6 on Instagram and Historical Femme, Femme, on Twitter. Don't expect me to post much on Twitter. I just retweet because I am one half of the podcast team behind Of the Eldest Gods, which is a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. Theoretically, we're going to get to all the books, but right now we are only in our first season. We are reading The Lightning Thief right now. I do that with my friend Charlie. You can find us at Of the Eldest Gods Pod on Instagram and Of the Eldest Gods on Twitter, and you can get us wherever you get your podcasts. We don't do spoilers, so if you want to read along with us, please do. Charlie and I have read the books before, but we want it to be accessible to everyone, so we've been having fun in our Discord with our Discord friends, just watching as everybody reads along with us. So that's my main thing. I don't do anything else with my life.
Has there been anything you've been reading or watching or listening to this week that you want to plug?
I guess I'll plug the book I mentioned earlier. Is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. When I picked it up, I thought it was going to be more like science-based and everything. But no, it's just a guy being very blunt and very open and talking about shit he's learned over his life. And, there was some things I don't necessarily agree with, but there's some things like that idea of what do you measure yourself up to? How many fucks do you have to give in your life? Things like that I did enjoy. It's like 200 pages, so it's not a terribly long read either. So, yeah, I guess that's what I'll plug because, I don't know, it was a good time.
Yeah, no, I've heard about the book. I haven't actually gone around to reading it. I'm a bit terrible when it comes to books. I'll buy them and then I just don't read them because, life happens. Mum had to, my whole family's avid readers, and my mum had to ban me from reading through high school so I'd actually get my work done. Now it's the opposite. Mum has to try to get his children to read. So you can find me at sam.the.journalist on Instagram and TikTok, or samobjournalist on Twitter, because Twitter seems to have a vendetta against ats that are longer than 15 characters.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
It's just terrible sometimes. I'm going to plug today Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I've been reading along with Of the Eldest Gods, and you know what? I thought it was going to be a boring read. I really love it. I've got my copy sitting right here. I finished reading it, and I just put it at the end of my bed. It's a very old copy of it, back from when I was 12. But I really enjoyed it. It was fun and hilarious to read.
Our friend Jish, he read it for the first time recently, and he read it in like the past week, and now he's rereading it and watched the movies, and it's like, I don't know. I think people come to Percy Jackson and not realizing how fun it is.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun of a read, and like you have to remember these characters are 12 years old as well. Like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, you got to remember they're actually 12 years old, and they're not, this adults. They're kids trying to sort out their shit.
And I think Percy and his friends are a little more relatable than I think Harry and Ron and Hermione are. Just, yeah, like real shit happens to them.
Yeah. And like the real world references as well, and things like, the Lincoln Tunnel, which I know is quite notorious. And
the Lincoln Tunnel.
I just watched Lord of the Rings again with some friends, and I just kept on singing Secret Tunnel, and I can't believe I've never seen Avatar The Last Airbender yet.
Yeah, neither have I, and I still know that's why I just sent out that tweet the one day with Lincoln Tunnel and the music notes, because I was like, they'll get it. They'll know what I'm...
Yeah. I 100% was like, and they had to go and show me the full song and like the scene around it. Very funny. Thank you so much for being on the pod, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. You can follow the podcast socials at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram and Twitter. You can send a super boring email to us through contentandcapablepod@gmail.com. The art was done by Opia. You can follow them on opia_art on Instagram. Opia is spelled OPIA. Feel free to message them about making art for your project. Our music was written, recorded and edited by Nora Strauss-Reeds. You can find Nora at Kane_I, that's I as in the body part, on Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to message her about making music for your project or editing your podcast. I am proud to be a part of the Movie Night Crew Network, which features the Restricted section, a chapter-by-chapter Harry Potter pod with lots of spoilers all the time, the Movie Night Crew, join some friends as they react to some terrible, some meh, and some really great movies, and Fandoms Gone Wrong, a show that discusses all things fandoms. My Cabbages, an Avatar podcast that follows the true hero of Avatar The Last Airbender, the Cabbage Cart Guy, and of the Eldest Gods, a chapter-by-chapter Riordan pod full of myths and legends.
Listen, we didn't want to be half-bloods.
If you're listening to this because you think you might be one, our advice? Stop listening to this podcast right now.
Percy Jackson had the right idea when he told people to stop reading the books detailing his adventures as a half-blood.
But we didn't listen to his warnings.
And that's why we started this podcast of the Eldest Gods, where we read books written by Rick Riordan and talk about how they affected us as kids and continue to as semi-adults. You can find us every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you think we fooled them for a second there?
Gods, I hope not.
Bring on the monsters, we're making a podcast!
Content and Capable is a podcast all about answering the question, how do you adult? Don't forget to rate and review it on your favourite podcatcher, and I will see you next Monday for another episode.
That movie sucked. I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.